This video is brought to you by Squarespace, an all-in-one platform for building your brand and growing your business online. The year is 2006. You were just listening to the new Nelly Furtado song, Promiscuous, on your iPod Classic. And yes, you downloaded it from LimeWire. You're making a Facebook account in secret, without your parents knowing, of course. They're out, so you also have to babysit your younger sister, but don't worry, she's occupied with her Fisher-Price digital camera. You can't wait for later tonight because Mom promised to take you to see Night at the Museum, and all your friends have been talking about how good it is. On the counter, your mom left out a New York Post article. On the front page is a paparazzi photo of mega it girls, Paris Hilton, Britney Spears, and Lindsay Lohan. They're sitting in the front seat of a Mercedes-Benz, and the headline reads, Bimbo Summit. Hello, my beautiful doves. My name is Mina, and today we're going to be talking about the bimbo core aesthetic and related aesthetics such as Barbie core and just in general the ultra girly pink hyper femme aesthetic. Before I get into it, I want to talk about this article, Bimbo Summit. If you weren't around or if you don't remember, in 2006, this article spurred national headlines, so let's talk about the players. Paris Hilton, heiress to the Hilton fortune and known for being a party girl socialite. Her notoriety started off with the leaking of her tape, and she also had a reality TV program called The Simple Life, in which she starred with at-time best friend Nicole Richie for 5 seasons.
Do we charge to check out the brakes squeaking?
No, ma'am.
We normally charge, but you sound hot, so I'll give it to you for free.
She also had a music career and top charts with her songs Stars Are Blind and Absolute Bop. If you don't remember it, listen to it right now. Or listen to it after the video. Lindsay Lohan. She started as a child actress, most notable for her roles The Parent Trap, Freaky Friday, and Mean Girls. She received widespread critical acclaim and also released 2 studio albums on the side. Britney Spears, dubbed the Princess of Pop. Britney started on Mickey Mouse Club before launching a successful mainstream pop career with hits like Baby One More Time and Oops, I Did It Again. For a time, she was the best-selling teenage artist. To give you just the skinny on the drama behind this photo, Lindsay and Paris were in the midst of an ongoing feud.
Paris.
We got you saying a second ago.
Tell them Dirty Gates in the tank.
The girls are fighting. I don't know if it's been verified, like the official reason why the feud even started, but a lot of people assume it's because Lindsay started dating Paris's ex, Stavros Niarchos. And then for months, they would just shade each other continuously to the press. On the night of the photo, Paris and Britney were hanging out. They were going to a Beverly Hills party. And according to Paris,
Britney and I went out for the night.
You and Brittany went out for the night, and then did Lindsay like kind of crash, or she was just around and she?
Yeah, she totally party crashed.
either way, the story got so much press because this was the era of tabloids when celebrities didn't have social media accounts to communicate to their fans, and us plebeians just clung to the skewed bias the media handed to us. All 3 of these women were at the height of their fame, and of course, the media loved nothing more at the time than to pit hot girls against each other. The unflattering late night vibe and the word bimbo emphasize this like dumb blonde party girl narrative that catalyzed widespread misogynistic backlash. I mean, in general, during the 2000s, this was like a highly misogynistic time period because paparazzi would use derogatory terms, just using slut-shaming terminology to justify their heinous acts of chasing down girls, taking photos up their skirts, crossing boundaries, and in recent times, in 2020 to be exact, Paris Hilton released a documentary on her life called This Is Paris, where she candidly talks about how the tabloid Paris we're all familiar with was a persona and not truly her. She also has a podcast of the same name, Podcast Queen, and in one of the episodes, she does address her relationship with Lindsay Lohan. She said,
and I know that we've had our differences in the past, but I just wanted to say congratulations to her and that I am genuinely very happy for her. And it just makes me so happy to see, 15 years later, and just so much has happened in the past 2 weeks. I got married. Britney got her freedom back and engaged. And then Lindsay just got engaged. So I love seeing just how different our lives are now and just how much that we've all grown up and just having love in our lives.
The media narrative around these three women has also changed considerably. Paris Hilton is celebrated as an intelligent and accomplished businesswoman. She also gained a lot of sympathy talking about the abuse she faced as a teenager in one of those troubled teen schools. Lindsay Lohan left the spotlight for several years and now has since picked up some acting gigs again. Please save my girl from the Hallmark movies, though. Got married and overall seems a lot healthier and happier. And Britney Spears, of course, freed herself from her conservatorship and got married. I'm bringing up this story because I think a lot of the reason why BimboCore and by extension Bimbo Talk, which is like the bimbo community of TikTok, I think the reason why they've become so popular is in part because of these changing attitudes towards these women of the 2000s. Squarespace makes it so easy to design a website with the tons of templates they have to choose from, plus additional ways to customize like changing the fonts, colors, background images, and more. Squarespace also has powerful built-in analytics, so you can track who's visiting your site and more, with page views, traffic sources, time on site, most read content, audience geography, etc. You can also use Squarespace to set up a store if you have things to sell. They also let you put in subscription plans if you want to sell a service. Check out squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Minalay to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. But let's explain BimboCore for anyone who doesn't know. BimboCore is a niche internet aesthetic that popped up on TikTok a couple years ago. It is a sartorial celebration of the bimbo persona. Bimbo, of course, referring to attractive women who are assumed to be stupid.
Boys are like buses. When you miss one, you can always catch another.
I want to say that the earliest mainstream reclamation of the bimbo happened in 2017. Like, you've definitely seen this. When I first initially came across this meme, I thought it was so misogynistic. I thought it was like, oh, implying that, you know, women who are tanned and blonde and wear skimpy clothes and have big breasts like can't be smart. The person who even shared it on Twitter wrote, imagine carrying a child for 9 months and give birth and take care of them for years for them to grow up to be the person who created this. But soon after the meme went viral, the artist, Soar Timid on DeviantArt, came forward and clarified that the art was not social commentary and was in fact part of an erotic niche of art called bimbo transformation. Here's another one of their works. According to Soar Timid, this genre art usually involves hyper-feminine, hyper-sexualized caricature. The particular viral meme that they made was a commission piece, and they had never expected it to leave their community. The aftermath of this viral meme is that some people took the initial image and switched it so that the brunette book reading girl transformed into the bimbo as sort of an act of reclamation, which overall contributed to this gradual trend of empowering the hyper-feminine. For BimboCore, aesthetic elements include Y2K trends, such as juicy couture tracksuits, baby tees with cheeky slogans on them, low-rise jeans, lingerie slips, mini skirts, Playboy logos, exposed thongs, glitter embellishments, and just skimpy silhouettes overall. Rolling Stone did a feature stating, the bimbo speaks in a fluty bird-like tone, think drag queen doing an Ariana Grande impersonation, and has a predilection for push-up bras, ponytails, and copious amounts of winged eyeliner. Role models include Cardi B, Anna Faris' character in The House Bunny, porn stars turned viral sensations, the Cock Destroyers, and the OG smart dumb blonde Paris Hilton. A lot of the BimboCore girlies have also roped in political ideologies, saying that they are, they're leftist, they are pro-LGBTQ, they are pro-sex work, they are feminist, and they are anti-capitalist. Morgan Sung wrote for Mashable, a modern bimbo is hyper-feminine, embraces their hotness, and rejects the capitalist mentality that they must showcase marketable skills, defying the male gaze in the process. A related but less sexualized aesthetic is Barbiecore, which grew in popularity after paparazzi photos of Greta Gerwig's upcoming Barbie movie spread around. Actually, following the release of said pictures, sales of fuchsia and neon clothes on the buy now pay later platform ClearPay increased by 44% each in the UK. Sales of coral clothes increased by 32%. Other products saw rejuvenated interest, such as scrunchies, jumpsuits, and leotards. Shazlin Yvonne explained the appeal to Mashable. Barbiecore is a feminist statement that empowers women to dress how they want without fear of judgment. She also notes that embracing Barbiecore can be particularly empowering for women of color who have been historically forgotten about when it comes to the Barbie franchise. Barbie is trying to turn around, but, let's be real, for much of the 20th century, no one wanted to buy, the Barbies of color. They were all supporting characters, and they were not the it girls in promotion. Fashion Shaquille Forbes Bell adds, nostalgia is known to spark joy, and for many, Barbie brings back positive memories from childhood. So I expect Barbiecore to continue to be popular. Now that we've explained what the aesthetics are, let's get into the history of the elements at play. First, I want to start off by talking about the history of the color pink, because pink is the mainstay color of both Bimbocore and Barbiecore. So the word pink originally comes from pinking shears, which are these type of scissors that create a jagged edge when trimming cloth. Pink became a popular name for a species of dianthus because the flower had jagged petals. And then these pink plants were also, as fate would have it, rosy in color. It wasn't until the 1840s when pink became a common term to describe a light pale red. But dye recipes for pink, or the color, existed since the mid-18th century. Pink was also gender neutral, and because for a long time the shade of pink available was this kind of paler pink, rosier pink, pink was more associated with young people. It's not really clear why marketers nationwide decided that pink was going to be for girls and blue was going to be for boys, because in the early 20th century, there are records that show that it really differed per region. Some parts of America were pink is for boys and blue is for girls, and in some parts of America it was the opposite. But some historians think that First Lady Mommy Eisenhower was a major influence in solidifying the femininity of pink. At the inaugural ball, she wore a pink ball gown that was studded with 2,000 rhinestones, and of course she was the talk of the town and a major influence for a lot of fashionable women. Fashion historian Valerie Steele credits the gender coding to millionaire Henry Huntington's acquisition of two 18th century paintings, The Blue Boy and Pinky. This acquisition was widely covered by the press, and the result of that is that a lot of people started to think that maybe for hundreds of years, since the 18th century, blue was for boys and pink was for girls. We know now that that's not necessarily true because of historical records. And, as I said, these colors for babies were light in color, like baby pink, baby blue. The particular shade of pink popularized in the Bimbocore and Barbiecore aesthetics, on the other hand, is hot pink, which happens to be the it color right now in high fashion. For example, just look at all the celebrities wearing Valentino pink on the red carpet. But Valentino was not the first designer, of course, to unleash hot pink onto the runway. Designer Elsa Schiaparelli was, and she rose to fame in the 1930s. Her shade of pink was known as shocking pink and was inspired by pink Cartier jewels that socialite Daisy Fellows was wearing when the two met. Schiaparelli later wrote of the account, "The color flashed in front of my eye, bright, impossible, impudent, becoming, life-giving, like all the lights and the birds and the fish in the world together. A color of China and Peru, but not of the West. A shocking color, pure and undiluted." As I said, pale pink is usually associated with youth and innocence. Hot pink, on the other hand, is electric. It's sexy. It's fiery. It's intimidating. Hot pink is Marilyn Monroe in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. She's spicy, assertive, and fun. Katie Kelleher wrote about why she thinks hot pink has risen up lately for Refinery29, and I totally agree. She says, hot pink became a direct response to the tyranny of earth tones, beige, and millennial pink. There's something a bit subversive about a hot pink, a little bit trollish, a little bit esoteric. There's a reason why Lady Gaga chose a doll-like look in the hue, while Casey Musgraves channeled Barbie for the camp-themed 2019 Met Gala. To add on to that, subversive connotation of hot pink, Schiaparelli was known for her surrealist designs, and when Valentino's creative director, Pier Paolo Piccioli, collaborated with Pantone for the Fall-Winter 2022 collection, the choice in pink is described as a liberation from the need for realism on the Valentino website. So now that we've talked about pink, let's talk about the history of the bimbo. The Oxford English Dictionary credits the November issue of the American magazine as the first to put the word bimbo into print, with the line, "Nothing but the most historic measures will save the poor bimbo." In this context, bimbo actually refers to a man. Bimbo was derived originally from the Italian word bambino, which means baby. But, there is evidence that bimbo referred to a woman, such as in 1920, when Irving Berlin published a song titled "My Little Bimbo Down on the Bamboo Aisle." The bimbo in the song is attractive and sexually promiscuous. Jack Conway of Vanity Fair is reputed to have popularized the word with the connotation of an unintelligent but sexually attractive woman in the late 1920s, and by 1937 it was being paired with blonde hair, such as in detective fiction weeklies. "We found Durkin and French Lesueur seated at a table with a pair of blonde bimbos beside them." This all happened around the time that the dumb blonde concept came into fruition as well. Vincent Soubiran explains in their article Women Bodies Power that the dumb blonde concept originates back to the 1930s chorus girls, who were characterized by their beauty, wholesomeness, but also by the fact that they were celebrated for their physique rather than their mental faculties. In fact, they appeared as mere objects. And according to assistant professor of history at Endicott College, Elizabeth Metelsky, the dumb blonde was designed to be the antithesis of the femme fatale, another Hollywood archetype of the time. I actually made a video on her a while back. The dumb blonde was Hollywood's response to women's desire for emancipation. She appeared innocent, childlike, and far less threatening. Even though she's still sexualized, she isn't manipulative or cunning like the femme fatale. For example, if we look at the response towards actress Betty Grable, who shot a pinup postcard series in 1943. This pinup series became extremely popular among GIs. Many soldiers even pinned her photographs above their beds in military camps. Joanna Pittman, Japanese professor at Cambridge University, explains, "Far from the luxury-loving vamp charged with high-voltage eroticism, Grable was warm and safe, nostalgic and virtuous, a girl with a heart of gold who was prepared to roll up her sleeves and do her bit of the war effort." Metelsky also explains that in the 1950s mass media, as women's breasts got larger, her IQ presumably got smaller. 1950s TV personality Dagmar, who was known for being blonde and curvaceous, even claimed that after losing 20 pounds, she could think fast. She said, "Too much weight stymies my mind. The fat was getting around my brain." I feel like that's not scientifically proven. And you can see how all this rhetoric translates into Hollywood movies as well. In How to Marry a Millionaire, Marilyn Monroe and Betty Grable are depicted as dumb blondes, in contrast to Lauren Bacall's character, who has significantly darker hair. And once again, in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, Marilyn Monroe's character is depicted as significantly more clueless than her brunette friend, played by Jane Russell. Speaking of Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, though, I was doing a little historical digging on this movie, and I had no idea that it was not an original movie and that it was actually adapted from a comic series in Harper's Bazaar called Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, The Illuminating Diary of a Professional Lady, created by Anita Loos. The success of this comic series led to a Broadway stage play that ran from 1926 to 1927, a 1928 silent movie adaptation produced by Paramount, a Broadway musical in 1949, and then finally a 20th Century Fox production in 1953, the most popular version today. Anyway, what's really interesting is the original character that Marilyn plays, her name is Lorelei. She gets a complete character revamp over the years. Originally, Lorelei was supposed to be like way more cunning. She was this flapper, this like young woman, sexually attractive, who would use her sex appeal to get gifts and money out of men. But in 1928, movie censors forced Paramount to cut a lot of the allusions to sex, which ended up downplaying the manipulator promiscuous bit and making the character way more sympathetic. Lorelai became a woman marrying for love, and this character alteration continued in other portrayals, including the Marilyn Monroe version. Anita Loos herself even wrote a critique in a 1953 Theater Arts article saying, Lorelai, the immoral gold digger, had become the sweetheart of the world. Almost everyone seemed to have missed the point of the story. Lorelai had become a kind of Cinderella. But anyways, by the time of Marilyn Monroe's death in 1962, the dumb blonde archetype had become washed. Susan Douglas remembers, when Marilyn died, it seemed to me that the seemingly dumb blonde, busty bombshell would no longer exert the cultural or sexual pull that she once did. Mommy Van Doren had similar sentiments after filming her 1965 picture with James Mansfield, called The Las Vegas Hillbillies. They were both blonde and casted in similar types of bimbo roles. She said, I realized that Jane and I were quickly becoming anachronisms. The era of the blondes was gone, and we seemed to be futilely trying to hold on to it. Despite the end of the Hollywood influence, the term bimbo would, rise and fall in popular slang, making a popular resurgence in the 1980s, with the Wall Street Journal even dubbing 1987 as the year of the bimbo. So what happened in 1987? In short, several women, including Fawn Hall, Donna Rice, and Jessica Hahn, were pulled into highly publicized scandals with powerful institutions. The Jessica Hahn story is actually really upsetting because she was and a lot of people just responded negatively towards her because this was before the Me Too movement. Afterwards, Jessica told Playboy magazine, this is supposed to be the year of the bimbos, right? So let's start with the fact that I am not a bimbo. I know that's how people see me, but I'm not what I've been made out to be. Someone without thoughts or feelings or explanations. I am a human being. Just adding on to that, I really want to emphasize that for the longest time, bimbo was not a compliment in the slightest way. It was very derogatory. Women did not like to be called bimbo, and it was always a label that someone else put onto a woman and not something, that she claimed for herself. And what were, the qualifications to be dubbed a bimbo? Usually because of the way that you were speaking or the way that you looked or dressed. It was always superficial elements of who you are that were spun to make assumptions about how smart you were. The label was also, used to focus media attention on these young women who were usually victims of the situation, rather than the actual antagonists at play, who were these crusty, dusty, musty men. Also, Holly Madison, a former Playboy bunny and Hugh's ex-girlfriend, like many of the women around her in the 2000s, got rich off being perceived as hot and dumb. But the personal cost of that pipeline was being constantly terrorized by the mass media. In the Secrets of Playboy documentary, she criticized the positive representation of Hugh Hefner in the reality TV show The Girls Next Door, which followed the antics of his girlfriends in the Playboy mansion.
I feel like on Girls Next Door, Hef was portrayed as a kindly grandpa. That's not how he is. Hef controlled every aspect of our life.
In the doc, Madison reveals she was afraid to leave what basically functioned as a cult, intimidated by a mountain of revenge that Hef would threaten her with. So given all this context, why is bimbocore aspirational for some people? Well, I think there's several factors at play here. According to meme librarian Amanda Brennan, the rise in bimbos may have to do with the state of the world we're living in right now. She said, the resurgence of bimbos feels like a direct reaction to the fact that so many unprecedented / giant world events are happening at once, and it's way too much for people to handle. In 2020, the sentiment was just wanting a smooth brain. If everything's burning down, you might as well be hot and happy on your own terms while it's happening. I also think that growing up in the early 2000s, a lot of girls were conditioned to suppress their femininity. I remember even me, I wanted to be a tomboy when I was younger, which did not happen. I'm just not, I had a fear of grass for a while. I could not be around dirt or grass. So obviously that did not work out for me. But, I did feel this pressure to be more like a boy, which I think is why there was this whole I'm not like other girls moment in the late 2000s, early 2010s. Or if girls did have the chance to embrace their feminine interest, they were most often than not nagged by adults around them or by the media. It was really hard to just have an unabashed joy in your femininity. Even now, in like today's era, there are jokes that men make online about how they have to take a girl swimming on the first date because, you know, they're just assuming she's a catfish with all the makeup she wears. And even worse, a lot of men will criticize women for wearing like, you know, mini skirts or exposed thongs, saying that they're asking for it, which, you know, no, they're not. They're not asking for it. And as Colette Grimes writes for Hypebae, the bimbo paradox compels women to police their behavior and appearance to not be seen as too ditzy, denying themselves the pleasure of being girly and wearing pink for the sake of being taken seriously by men, as well as other women who have internalized these misogynistic messages. And it's also not a coincidence that bimbocore rose like in 2020, which is when we were all like locked in our houses and a lot of people were feeling more nostalgic about their childhoods. There were lots of accounts of people revisiting old movies and TV shows they watched, playing old games, all to help them cope with the uncertainty of what was going on in the world. Likewise, a lot of accessories to Barbiecore and Bimbocore, like feather pencils, lip smackers, and dolls, were mainstays of our childhoods. And I think that's the main point of Bimbocore at the end of the day. It's just to have fun. It's to vibe without anyone's opinions affecting who you want to be. As Ariel Richards writes for Vice, a recurring theme in bimbology is forcing yourself to think less, especially in terms of conflict. Fifi's wall method describes how to force yourself to have no thoughts by imagining a white wall. A large part of bimboism's appeal is in its potential to shield oneself from harm, smooth brain style. It's the idea of weaponized unintelligence, you know? It's pretending not to know any better for your own personal gain, whether that gain be something tangible from a man or just shielding yourself from conflict. This is kind of evident in how a lot of bimbo talkers adopt this like semi-ironic tone. I can definitely see the appeal of wanting to tune out of a hyper fast moving world and just wanting to vibe and, you know, relax. At the same time, I'm like not really into the TikToks that are about like depending on men for financial needs. I don't think that's a good message to be spreading around. It's kind of how I feel about just like, you know, trad wife sensibilities too. Like women have worked so hard to fight for their right to work. And even now there is like a gender pay gap. So kind of saying that you don't want to work and like depend on a husband is actually like not very progressive because it's an institution that has trapped women and has been the only reality for women for hundreds of years. As Jill writes in her Substack, I would also argue that the progressive policies feminists want to see, universal childcare, paid parental leave, broader workplace protections, including more robust anti-discrimination laws, aren't going to happen through the benevolence of a male-controlled political system. They're going to require that women have power and influence, including political power and including financial power. Is this an ideal system? No. But if we want to change it, women receding from public life and relying on men is not how it's going to happen. I mean, obviously, I don't think that a lot of these girls who are touting this ideology are necessarily like thinking that deeply about the repercussions for what that would mean as a whole if every woman opted out of work. Because I think at the end of the day, like Bimbocore is also this like flashy reaction against the girl boss lean in hustle culture of the 2010s. A lot of the rhetoric of girl boss culture was actually about embracing like masculine traits to succeed in a business world, like to compete with other men. But you know, this is just like a subsector of the bimbo talk community. There are a lot of people who are participating in Bimbocore who idolize figures like Elle Woods and Paris Hilton, who are just, championed for being these very accomplished, successful women without compromising their own feminine aesthetic choices. Griffin Maxwell Brooks, a leader of Bimbo Talk, is non-binary and has also offered really good perspective about bimboism across gendered lines. They said, there's a lot of internalized homophobia in the gay community. In adopting this very feminine aesthetic at times, one of the things I had to do was be okay with no longer fitting this mold, so some gay men will not be attracted to me. Similarly, Meredith Suzuki has also talked about the diversity of Bimbocore. The definition of a bimbo has expanded from the stereotypical Valley Girl blonde. Anyone of any race, gender, sexual orientation, body type, or style aesthetic can become a bimbo. As a QPOC myself, rather than feeling excluded from the conversation, I wanted to set an example. I do think that there are people of all genders, all races, etc., participating in Bimbocore, which I think is very good. The only obstacle, and this is the obstacle for just any aesthetic that has vintage inspirations, is that the figures on, everyone's Pinterest mood board is usually like a cisgender white blonde woman. Think Barbie, Karen from Mean Girls, Elle Woods, Anna Nicole Smith. Don't get me wrong, I definitely think creators like Griffin and Chrissy Schlepeka, who is another viral bimbo talk sensation, have very good intentions and are using their space online in a very positive and inclusive way. It's just the subliminal messaging you get when scrolling through mood boards on Pinterest that can make it seem like Bimbocore is exclusionary and it's not for anyone who doesn't fit this particular standard of beauty. I also think that bimbo talkers taking on this progressive leftist ideology is a positive thing, obviously. But I do think it can be a little surface level, particularly the anti-capitalism bit, because, and this is just with any aesthetic, being able to participate means you have to consume. Like, if you really want to be part of this like online community, it's like you will have to buy something, whether that be clothes or home goods or just a lifestyle. Rohitha Naraharsetti writes for The Swaddle, high heels, lingerie, long nails, sunglasses, tiny purses, and bandage dresses have all at various points in time been regarded as oppressive for the ways that they became essential to expressing femininity, as if that was all there was to being feminine. But now we're back to reclaiming these same things that, at the end of the day, line the pockets of the retail, wellness, and beauty megaliths who have the most to gain from it. Also, a lot of these girls tend to be like pro plastic surgery, which I think is fine as an individual choice, but it is definitely not anti-capitalist. Like, think about it. You're shelling out thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to conform to this Eurocentric beauty standard that's been pushed onto you by the mass media and by doctors who are just trying to, make the most money possible. Beauty writer Jessica DeFino wrote in her Substack, I just feel like people should be a little less passionate about asserting their right to express via winged eyeliner, literally no one is stopping you, and a little more passionate about understanding how most of our beauty behaviors are physical manifestations of ingrained classism, sexism, racism, colorism, ageism, ableism, and binarism. Either way, a lot of bimbo proponents will say that just the idea of dressing for yourself is feminist, and I think it definitely can be. Others will say that just the act of, focusing on your looks and thinking about men, even if you're thinking like about how to not appeal to them, is not feminist. Ariel Levy famously wrote in her 2005 book, Female Chauvinist Pigs, that women who wear Playboy bunny paraphernalia are willingly participating in their own objectification. At the end of the day, like, my personal opinion is that I think anything that a woman does is going to be criticized for being feminist or for being anti-feminist. It's just like a sickening fact of being a woman or just like a non-cis person in general, where everything that you do is just looked at through a political lens. Whereas, for men, if a man decides to be like a stay-at-home husband, or if a man decides to work in an oil field or something, other than people like the alpha people like Andrew Tate or whatever, who no one takes seriously anyway, other than those people, no one is criticizing you for your job decision and saying that you are bringing down the collective man for choosing to be an elementary school teacher or something. For this video, I wanted to show the different perspectives that people have towards Bimbocore so that anyone who's interested in it or who's interested in participating in it has the most information out there available to make a decision. But I am not personally for or against Bimbocore. And as an individual choice, it should be perfectly fine for you to dress however you want to dress, as long as it's not hurting anyone. But the problem is because it's become this viral sensation that is not anyone's fault. It's literally the algorithm's fault that it becomes messy. Because on the one hand, I do see the frustration of people who are anti-bimbos, particularly in how plastic surgery is discussed. And I think, I don't think anyone should be promoting plastic surgery without a nuanced understanding of what that means on a greater societal scale. But at the same time, is it fair to pin the plight of feminism on a group of people who are just making videos for fun and who just happen to become viral overnight? And I also think that like the media can sometimes make these things into moral panics where it's like, you know, every young woman out there wearing a scrunchie and a mini skirt is bringing down women, when at the end of the day, it's still a very niche online aesthetic. And every individual person has their own, you know, social, political, cultural beliefs and ideology for why they dress the way that they dress. Another negative thing I've noticed about media coverage for this aesthetic is that a lot of people are resurfacing the age-old dumb girls, smart girls dichotomy where only academic girls should be respected. Even the proponents of New Age bimboism like fall into this. A lot of them are quick to point out that these new bimbos are, you know, actually intelligent. They're actually smart people, and that somehow legitimizes their right to wear mini skirts because it's like ironic in a way. But if we're celebrating femininity, then it shouldn't matter at all like what someone's intelligence level is. It's also just like definitely not lost to me how in a lot of articles that cover Bimbocore and the ones that interview Griffin never fail to mention that Griffin is an engineering student at Princeton, as if being part of the Ivy League somehow like validates their hyper femininity. And you know, like I do think it's like incredibly impressive to be in STEM. at a big institution, but that shouldn't be the baseline for whether or not you should be respected. It's like what Marlo Granados wrote for The Baffler. Elle Woods' intelligence is not taken seriously until it is bolstered by an institution. Why do we require an official seal of approval to legitimize and substantiate the existence of these hyper-feminine characters? Must we use academic theory to explain away the existence of Anna Nicole Smith, Paris Hilton, and the like? Elle Woods, poolside in her sequin bikini, didn't need to go to Harvard, but perhaps we needed her to. Okay, this is the end of the video. Thank you so much for sticking around. Please let me know in the comments what you think about Bimbocore, Barbiecore, Bimbo Talk, this trend of, you know, like celebrating hyperfemininity in an aesthetic sense. I would love to hear it. And yeah, I'll see you next time. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Bye-bye.